I got like the neighbors' Christmas lights going on behind you, and it's like they're just like blinking. I'm like, ooh, it's like
it's perfect.
It's a rave. What's up, everybody? Woo! Welcome to another amazing week of Case Files with Kat
and Ashley.
Yeah. Man, it's almost the holiday with the big red guy, and the big guy in a big red suit. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you going out of town for it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Doing the usual.
Yeah, and then I'm hoping to just sleep until New Year's when I get back. That's my goal. I'm listening to you. We had a really good comment on one of our videos on YouTube, so I was looking for the comment so I could read it to you later in case you're wondering why I'm on my phone.
Yeah,
before you yell at me.
She is. She's ignoring me. How can you not look at my face? Anyway, yeah, we're not doing anything. I'm working all but Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then I'm
just taking Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, and I'll be working every other day.
Yeah. All these people taking 2 weeks off must be nice. No, I actually could have taken 2 weeks off, but I mean, it would have still been a staycation. I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere.
I was talking to someone, and they're like, "Yeah, my company shuts down for 3 weeks." I'm like, "Do they pay you?" Yeah.
What? We're in the wrong business. We are in the wrong business. Well, how was your week?
Well, it's Tuesday.
Since last week, bitch.
It was good. The boat parade was good. That was the highlight of my week.
Yeah.
And, actually went to Galveston Bay Brewery. They have a new parking lot. So that's nice. Very localized. I'm sorry for all you people who don't know where this is, but their beers are just, oh my God, I love it. And their food. But anyways, it's been pretty uneventful other than that. I'm actually in a pretty good mood. I know. Shocking. I don't know why. It's just
the meds are working today, folks.
She came in overdrive. I don't know.
She came in with a beer. She's ready to go.
Yeah.
I
did real good to remember to bring I have to tell myself when I leave the house to take it to the office and then get it from the office and bring it here.
Well, you can just leave it here.
I mean, I could, but then what if I want to drink it when I'm not here?
That's true. Yeah, so this week is like all chamber all the time. Love my ladies. And so, so today was like board meeting. Tomorrow is luncheon. Thursday is the big party. And it's fun. But we're doing our Christmas store this week. So all of our clients are shopping. And so this is so cool because these are domestic violence victims who are in our shelter or in our hotel program or just trying to make it on their own.
Yeah.
Who don't have all the means to make Christmas as magical as we would all want it to be for our little ones. And so the community comes together and we get donations of toys and teenager gifts from the whole community from all over. And it's just awesome because they come in and they see it and the look of just kind of shock and appreciation. It's my favorite thing that we do. And people stay and help wrap the gifts for them and everything. So it's awesome. It's awesome. So I love, so I'm spending my time there in the chamber all week.
Yes. We have the shopping for kids event coming up.
Oh yeah, that's Saturday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With the Rotary. Yeah. So that's...
It's a busy time of year. So like I said, I plan on sleeping from Christmas to New Year's Day. I still haven't even done all of my Christmas shopping, and it's like next week.
Same.
But can I just read this comment real quick? Because I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
So this is on our YouTube. So if you don't know, we stream our audio to YouTube. So if for whatever reason you prefer to listen to stuff on YouTube, this person says, "I love these ladies. True crime and not just any crimes. The most gruesome, the worst of the worst."
Really?
They do great research on all the stories and deliver it all along with sampling some very interesting sounding local Texas beers. Does the fact that I enjoy listening to these ladies as they describe in detail the most gruesome evidence make me sick or just twisted? Everyone who likes this subject definitely needs to listen, follow, and subscribe.
Oh, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Is that Sarah?
No, I don't know who it is. The username is David. So,
hi, David.
I didn't know if this was someone you might know, but
no.
Anyways, they subscribed to us, and they left us this really great review. So I just wanted to read that before I forgot, because it's so nice when people leave us good reviews.
If it makes you weird or whatever twisted to listen to us, imagine us doing the research.
Yes, imagine what the people who see our data think.
I literally was typing in last week or this weekend, typing in, how long does it take for bones to turn to ash burning? Like, that was my, like, oh, this looks really bad.
Like when I look up like how to get away with like hiding a body, so I'm just like, for research purposes.
For research purposes.
I'm sorry, this beer is really good.
Oh, good. Which one is it?
The Ejectocito Cuz by Martin House. Another Martin House.
Dallas.
They're always so good. I've had this a couple of years ago, and I hadn't had it in a while. It's so good. It's Imperial Stout with peanut butter, graham crackers, cinnamon, and lactose, and it's 10%, and it is just delicious.
Okay, so what does it taste like? Those are all kind of weird. Does it taste like a peanut butter cup?
Like peanut butter.
Wow, like a peanut butter cup?
Yeah, Imperial Stout peanut butter. It's really, 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 really good.
Interesting. So and that's by Martin House. Mm-hmm. And I've got, it's a St. Arnold. It's called Banger IPA. It's a double IPA. So this is 8.4%.
Oh shit, it's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be lit. No, I'm just kidding. It's just one. It'll be fine. All right. Okay. So you inspired me. Jason and I the Wizard. You. Yes, the Wizard and I did not solve your case last week. We talked. It's okay. We did talk about it. Like, I immediately went into the bedroom and was like, let me just repeat everything that Ashley said before I forget. And he was like, what? And he did what? Like, it's so bizarre. And so I couldn't wait for people to catch it. Like, did you listen already? Like, no, I haven't. Oh, like, I'm just
Cold Case Crackers needs to get together and have a powwow.
Cool. Well, Sarah is a little behind. She's not caught up. She's a couple of weeks behind. I know. So when she hears this, she's going to be like, all right.
After I forgave her and everything.
Okay. So talk about the Spotify. Oh, well, we got to get going. Yeah, people are tired of hearing us. Anyway, but she redeemed herself. Anyway, okay. So you inspired me because I was like, this is a great mystery. So this story was sort of in on my back burner because it is a mystery and I don't normally do those, but I wanted to keep with the theme of the holiday. And so I did that for Thanksgiving. So I'm doing a very old, a very strange, unsolved case of the 5 missing Sodder children from Fayetteville, West Virginia. You know this one?
I do, but it's crazy every time I hear it.
I know, it's just because there's so many questions. Anyway, so gather round, little ones. Grab your frosty beverage or your coffee or your tea or whatever your jam is, and listen to Auntie Kat as I tell the tale of this Christmas mystery. I wonder if this is like the old, Christmas.
I actually didn't know it was a Christmas time story. So
okay, yeah. Well, this happens Christmas Eve. All right.
Well,
so imagine leaving your home country as a teenager, not even a teenager, barely a teenager, 13 years old, and you're never to return. So that's exactly what Mr. George Sodder did. He was born Giorgio Sodder in Tula, Sardinia in Italy in 1895. And he came to the U.S. and when he was just 13 and probably at Ellis Island, he was with his brother. And when immigrants came over, they would say their name and they're like, okay, your name is Sodder. He heard Sodder and he got Sodder. So his name changed. So his older brother was with him, but then he just turned right around and went back to Italy.
Oh, wow.
So you're a 13-year-old alone in a big city. You don't speak the language. Holy shit. What were you doing at 13?
Nothing good.
Not immigrating by yourself to another country and surviving, like.
I was surviving, but not by myself in another country without
knowing the language or anything. I mean, gosh.
Yeah. Did it say why they decided to come here? Like why for his brother to just immediately turn around, that seems
I know.
wild.
But better life. Anyway. George never talked about why he left or why he stayed, but he spent the rest of his life here in the United States. And he started at the bottom. He was working the railroads in Pennsylvania. He was hauling water and supplies for the crews. And eventually he made his way to Smithers, West Virginia, where he drove trucks and later built a successful trucking business, helping people haul their goods from the railroads to their businesses. So
good for him.
Yeah.
It was a totally different time when you could just, you know what I mean? Like, come here and start a business and it just thrive. I mean, because he was 13.
13. But he saw a need.
Opportunity.
Yeah, he saw a need and he met that need. And
good for him. Honestly.
Yeah. And so by the time he met his wife, Jennie Cipriani, also an Italian immigrant, and the daughter of a storekeeper, George was well on his way to establishing himself. And she had immigrated when she was 3, so she had been here for a little while. The two married in 1922 and settled down in a 2-story house near Fayetteville, surrounded by a tight-knit community of Italian immigrants. And this family was very, very well respected. They were well established. The business was successful. They were good people, right? You know, they were known about town and they were well liked. There didn't seem to be any issues with them. They were just nice people. So over the years, George and Jennie had 10 children.
Oh, wow.
How's that make you feel?
Uneasy.
Different time.
Well.
Catholics, you know. Every sperm is sacred. So by all accounts, though, the Sodders were this just respected, hardworking, middle-class family with 10 children, and ranging from, like, the youngest was 2, and I think the oldest, so when this takes place, the youngest was 2 and the oldest was 26.
Oh, so it wasn't like 10 back to back.
That's almost back to back.
Well, I guess.
That's all. That's all.
That's true.
So between 20, they got married in 22. This happened in 45.
Okay.
And they had a 20-something-year-old kid and a 2-year-old kid. She just kept having babies.
I mean, good for her if that's what she wanted to do. I don't even want to have one child, so I can't imagine wanting to have 10. But good for those of you that would love to have children.
I imagine, though, that it would to us, it would be, we're thinking of like expense. We're thinking of like, oh my gosh, I got to send these kids to college. I think then it was like such a different time. Like, they worked. They were expected to help take care of the animals on the farm and shit like that. Like,
and didn't they have, because children didn't always live very long?
Yes.
Something like that.
The generation before, yes. Life expectancy wasn't always so high. Yeah, so this was, Yeah. So, okay. So well-liked family. Let me go back to where I was. I'm like, I gotta find my place again. All right. So George had a reputation of speaking his mind. Great. Like, you know, well-respected, but he was still vocal because he was really opposed to Mussolini, who was the fascist dictator of Italy, right? So that wasn't always such a good thing. There were Italians in the United States that still supported the fascism in their home country, and they were backers of Mussolini. And he was very vocally opposed to a fascist dictator. Okay. And so it did ruffle some feathers. So then came 1945. And that year just changed everything. So just months before Christmas, right, strange things started to happen in the Sodder home. And after I tell the story, we're going to probably go back and go, oh wait, didn't this thing happen? You know, like we're gonna see where all these things tie in, possibly. I mean, will we have solved the case? Absolutely. I think cold case crackers.
Totally.
Up in the house.
I'm ready.
Right here.
I'm taking mental notes.
Okay. So strange things started to happen. First, a life insurance salesman showed up at the Sodder home. And not unusual. People sell insurance. But after George turned him away, he warned George that the house would, quote, go up in smoke and that his children would be destroyed. All because of George's anti-Mussolini comments. Case solved. That's it.
End of story. Great episode.
Yay. And we'll see you after Christmas. Okay. So around the same time, another man claiming to be a worker looking for a job walked around the property and just casually mentioned that their fuse boxes were a fire hazard. This struck George as odd since the house had recently been rewired and given the all clear by the power company. And it didn't stop there. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, George's older sons noticed a car parked along the highway near their home. The people inside weren't just passing through, they were watching the younger Sodder kids as they walked home from school.
Weird.
Was it paranoia? Perhaps. Or was someone actually watching them? This is where the story starts to take a bit of a darker turn. Christmas Eve, 1945, should have been a night of celebration, just like it is for anybody who celebrates Christmas. Their 2-story timber home tucked away just outside of Fayetteville, West Virginia, was bustling with holiday cheer. Jennie had prepared treats for the kids, while Maurice and 4 of his siblings, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty, asked to stay up late and play with their Christmas toys, and the rest of the family went to bed.
So just the kids were awake?
Just the kids were awake. Okay. So George and Jennie went upstairs. The mom, Jennie, went upstairs with the youngest, Sylvie. Okay. So the 3 of them go upstairs. Some of the others, there's one kid, the 10th kid, Joe, he's the oldest or second oldest. He was away at the army. So there's 9 family members. Okay. So 1 serving in the army, 9 are in the house.
3 are upstairs.
3 are together in one room.
Okay.
Sylvie, mom, and dad.
Okay.
2 of the boys, I think, went upstairs as well eventually, leaving Martha, Louis, Jennie, Betty
downstairs. Okay.
So that's 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they promised that they would do their chores before they went to sleep. Parents were cool with that, and then they let them stay up. But just after midnight, everything changed. Jennie was jolted awake by the sound of the phone ringing. So she quickly got up to answer it, and she went downstairs to do that. And she, because she didn't want everyone else to wake up. So she goes downstairs and she picks it up, and she hears an unknown woman's voice on the other end. And the woman asked for someone to speak to somebody that Jennie didn't know. When she said, "You have the wrong number," the woman laughed this strange laugh and hung up. But in the background, Jennie could hear people like laughing and clinking glasses, talking. Like it sounded like it was a party. You know that sound of just people like, oh yeah, hey, ding, ding, ding. Like it just sounded like it was a fun time, and this woman was laughing, and she probably dialed the wrong number. But she could hear people in the background. She believed it was a prank call or just a wrong number, so she went back to sleep. And then but before she went back to sleep, she noticed downstairs, she was like, the front door is still unlocked, so she locked it. The lights were still on, the drapes were still open. And this is all stuff that the kids would have done before going to bed. But her daughter was asleep on the couch. She'd fallen asleep reading a magazine. So she was like, she just left her there and did all the closing up.
And so then she did see the kid.
She saw the kid. One. Yeah, she saw kids. She saw one kid. Okay. Front door unlocked. Windows are open, so she closes them, sees the kid, and she just kind of goes upstairs. I mean, this is at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
She goes back to bed. Usually, if staying up later than the parents, the children would close the drapes, lock the door, and all of that. So she was like, meh. She really didn't think anything of it. She got another solid 30 minutes of sleep before being jolted awake again because she heard the sound of something kind of heavy hitting the roof and then hard and then rolling down and then silence again.
Weird.
So imagine like a...
I mean, I hear acorns and stuff, from squirrels, but I can't imagine hearing something heavy.
Something
I would
heavier, right? An acorn has a sound.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I can't imagine hearing something like
a baseball.
Yeah,
if you heard a baseball hit and roll, it would have this.
I would freak.
You'd freak out, right? Side note, because we're talking about things hitting the roof and sliding down. So Jason was putting up. Did you see the lights up on the house on your way in?
I was in a hurry because I was running late.
So Jason hung up those Govee lights.
Okay, I'll look at them when I leave.
Okay,
I was just in a hurry.
So he goes, Kat, I'm gonna be on the most dangerous part of the of the roof. Can you come and check on me?
Oh my God.
every once in a while. So Olivia and I are at the table. Anderson's watching TV, and all of a sudden we hear boom. And we just hear his body going down the roof.
Oh,
going down the roof. And we just about died. We run outside and I'm like, Jason. He's like, yeah. Are you okay? Yeah. So we're all just sitting there like silent. I'm like, okay. So we go inside and
he had actually fallen off the roof.
He slid down the roof. He didn't fall off the roof. He was still up there.
Oh my God. Okay.
By the skin of his teeth. And so the kids and I are standing there. Anderson was like, God, he could have died. Like, just like that realization. And Olivia just quietly looks at me and she goes, that scared the shit out of me. And I'm like, that's okay if you're cussed, because me too, girl. Like, me too. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so yes. So something heavy rolling down. It was like elephants. Sorry. It was so loud and terrifying. Anyway, so yes, poor Jenny, she hears this thing hit the thing hard, roll down. And she thinks to herself, well, it's windy outside. You
try to rationalize it so you don't like
shit.
Freak out.
Yeah. You're like, that's weird.
I don't want to get out of bed. It's probably nothing.
She thinks, nothing. So she tries to go back to sleep. 30 minutes later, she's woken up again by the smell of smoke filling up her house. George and Jenny frantically woke the children who were sleeping upstairs. 4 of them made it out. 2 older boys, 1 daughter, and the baby, Sylvie. But 5 of their kids, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, didn't come down. George tried everything to get to them. He smashed a window to re-enter the house, and he cut his arm doing that. But the smoke was so thick and the heat was so intense that it forced him back out. So he's like, I know, I'm going to run and get the ladder that I always leave on the side of my house to get up to the 2nd floor, only to discover that it's gone. It's missing. And they found that freaking ladder in a ditch somewhere far away.
Did he see the kids inside, or they just assumed they were inside?
They just assumed they were inside. Okay. Yeah, I mean, why would they be not?
So did the one that was sleeping on the couch, that was one of the ones that got out, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the baby, the 2 boys that were upstairs, and the one that was asleep on the couch.
So everyone now is accounted for who she saw.
Got it.
And then that's it.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm like having your issue from last week. So he's like, okay, no ladder. I mean, this man is like on he's
trying to get his kids. Yeah.
Right. So he's like, oh, I know. I'm going to go to one of my trucks. He has 2 trucks. I'm going to go to one of my trucks, drive it close to the house, stand on the truck and get to the 2nd floor. His trucks that were working perfectly fine, neither one of them started. So he couldn't do that. They wouldn't work. They did not start. How much bad luck? Right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jenny and the older children screamed for help. They were screaming. A neighbor called the fire department, but no one was there. Because at this point, it was calling an operator, but there was no operator.
It's like my biggest fear. I'm not sure.
The department, though, is a volunteer fire department, short-staffed. It was Christmas Eve. Nobody was on staff. The operator wasn't answering anyway. And by the time the firefighters did arrive 7 hours later...
Oh my God.
The Sodder home was nothing more than a pile of ash at this point. One Good Samaritan, even, like, there were other people who were calling the fire department. There were neighbors who were calling the fire department. There was some guy who was like, you know what, I'm going to go into town. And he went into Fayetteville and found the Fayetteville fire department chief at a pub. Said, hey, are you going to go help this fire out, right? And says, I don't know.
Oh my God.
So what they ended up having to do was the chief called one of the service people. There was no fire alarm in town. There was no like to alert people. So the fire chief called Ashley. Ashley then had to call one of the other, then Ashley had to call Kat, then Kat had to call Jason, then Jason had to call Kendra, then Kendra had to call Blake. So it was like an emergency phone tree.
Yeah.
Rather than one call going out. Thank goodness that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So authorities show up and quickly rule the fire an accident, claiming it was caused by faulty wiring. But George and Jennie weren't convinced. I mean, for starters, they had just had the house rewired and they were told it was safe. And then there was the most haunting detail that is just as awful. There was no trace of the 5 missing children. Not a single bone fragment in the ashes. Had they perished in the fire? Or...
But there would have been bone, right? If nothing else.
I would
That's
say...
what always got me about this story.
I know.
Like there was nothing.
There are people who have... There were people in contemporary time and since this story happened who say even in the most extreme temperatures, and I'll talk about this again later, that there would have been something. So did they die in the fire? No one's saying that's impossible that to have happened, that there would be nothing left of them. No one's saying that's impossible, but they're saying it's highly unlikely. As the Sodders began piecing together the events of that night, the strange warnings, the suspicious visitors, the unsettling sightings in the weeks prior of the guy watching the younger kids, it stopped feeling like, oh, these are just weird things happening. Like you can only have so many coincidences before they start to add up. Where you start to feel like, is this a conspiracy? And am I a conspiracy theorist now?
Yeah.
You start to feel a little crazy. So in the days following the fire, George and Jennie were desperate for answers. So the official explanation that the children had been consumed by the flames just didn't sit right. The medical examiner did not sign the death certificates. It was someone who worked at the funeral home, but they were pronounced dead.
Without any evidence?
Without any evidence. Quickly after that fire, they were like, oh, this is so sad. Let's just move on. It was just sort of like, this was a horrible accident. We're so sorry. This is terrible. Just that kind of thing. Like anyway, but it was not the medical examiner that signed that. The official explanation that the children had been consumed by flames did not sit right. First of all, there were no remains, not even a fragment of bone. The family even went as far as sifting through the ashes themselves, and they found nothing. Here's the thing, and we were just talking about this. Even in a fire hot enough to destroy a house, bones don't completely disintegrate. George knew this, and Jennie decided to test the theory herself. So she started burning animal bones in their outdoor stove to see what would happen. And no matter how long or how hot the fire burned, the bones didn't turn to ash. They were still there. Then there was the fact that they just rewired the house when they installed their electric stove. And George had been assured by the power company that everything was up to code. He was like, while you're here, I don't want to start a fire with this thing. Can you make sure all my shit's legit? And they were like, yep, everything's working perfectly. So that odd comment by the supposed handyman about the fuse boxes causing the fire seemed suspicious as fuck. Right?
Unless the company themselves lied and just didn't actually check. I mean, it's still weird. With everything else, it's fucking weird. So, I'm just saying, like, for the benefit of the doubt of the stranger, maybe he was right.
And, you know, like,
just plain devil advocate here. Maybe he was correct. Maybe the company, you know, I've had my fair share of lazy contractors when my house was being redone.
But this is the electric company versus a guy coming to your house begging for work.
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't get hired and he came back and fucked shit up.
Yeah, maybe.
You know. Anyway, so remember the show Making a Murderer? This is how I know so much about bodies burning.
Nice. Sure. We'll say that. That's why.
It's like, I think a few of us got to be experts about bones and fire from that show. And there's also that podcast Up and Vanished that came out a while back. Anyway, bones do not fully turn to ash on their own, even in a natural environment, and require a high temperature cremation process to break down into what is commonly called ashes. And it takes usually about 2 to 3 hours at temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius or about 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, where the bones are essentially fragmented into small bits rather than just completely becoming ash. So 2 to 3 hours at nearly 2,000 degrees, you still have bone fragments.
But the house burnt for 7 hours, right?
45 minutes. 45 minutes. The fire department didn't show up.
Okay. I thought you meant like it was burning.
It burned 40 to 45 minutes.
Wow.
Here's the other thing. Not even all of the appliances were burned to dust.
Wow.
So if there were still things...
Yeah, there's no way the bones would be.
Wow. Correct. And teeth don't.
Yeah.
Teeth don't. The more they thought about it, the more things didn't add up. Why had the ladder that George always kept propped up against the house suddenly disappear? Mm-hmm. They found it tossed in the ditch like 100 feet away. Like it was, what?
Clearly someone, right? Like it did.
Why hadn't the truck started when George tried to rescue the kids? Those trucks had been working perfectly fine that morning before, like that day before. Was it something hitting the roof that Jenny heard? Like, was that something hitting the roof? What caused the fire? Was it a piece of debris or was it something that was thrown up there? Then came the most chilling detail, the eyewitness accounts. A woman claimed to have seen the 5 missing Sodder children in a car driving away from the house while the fire was going.
Like the children themselves were driving?
No. They were in a car. There was adults in the car, and then there were the 5 children. She saw their faces looking out of the window. Another witness reported seeing them with a group of strangers the next morning at a rest stop about 50 miles away. As these stories started trickling in, George and Jenny became convinced that the children hadn't died, that they had been kidnapped.
It's crazy to think that someone would be able to kidnap 5 separate children. You know what I mean? Like you would, like, how do you even pull that off?
They shared 2 rooms. Those 5 shared 2 rooms. Well, I know, but
what I'm saying is like, how do you, if it was one person, how do you subdue all 5 children without one of them getting away or making a sound or, you know what I mean? Like that is insane, which just adds to the craziness of the story.
They had to do chores too. So they could have been outside like finishing their chores, and they could have been, separated, and they could have just kind of picked off who was out there doing the thing. So despite their suspicions, local authorities insisted that there was no foul play. They refused to reopen the investigation, so the Sodders took matters into their own hands.
Good for them.
George began plastering the area with flyers featuring the kids' photos, offering $5,000 reward for any information. $5,000 in 1945? That's some shit right there. Later, he raised it to $10,000. He even put up a giant billboard on the edge of their property along Route 16, keeping the children's faces in the public eye. And I actually sent you that photo of those of that thing. Hold on, let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, I can't read it, but it says really, really big. What was their fate? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive? ? Really, really big. Has the pictures of all the 5 children. It says $5,000 reward. And so that went up. So years passed, but the clues never stopped. One day in 1968, Jennie received an envelope with no return address. And inside was a photograph of a young man, really handsome young man with dark eyes, curly hair, and written on the back were the words, Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie, little boys, A90132 or A90135.
It's random.
That's all it said. And it was in the envelope, and that's it.
How weird. Like, what does that even mean?
Don't know. There was no Frankie. I love brother Frankie. There's no Frankie in their family, so that was just really weird. Jennie was certain it was her son, who would have been in his 20s. 1968. He was 5. I don't do math. So Jennie was certain that it was her son. George traveled to the address the envelope had been postmarked from, and he followed all the leads. He would go anywhere if there was a lead and there's nobody else doing it, so he would do it.
Yeah.
And yet, but he couldn't find anything, so it was another dead end. The Sodders never gave up. They continued their search until the end of their lives, keeping the billboard up for decades as a constant reminder of their missing children. Jennie wore black every day, 44 years of her life. She wore black every day for the next 44 years of her life. Isn't that just...
Yeah.
It puts it into perspective. Like these children, she mourned her children. She had to still be there for these other children, but she still mourned these children. To this day, no one knows what really happened to Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty. Did they die, as the officials claimed, or were they part of this larger, sinister kidnapping plot? Who knows? So the case leaves us with so many questions. Was it George's outspoken stance against Mussolini, because those people were really pissed off about his opinions about Mussolini? Did these visitors have something to do with it? The life insurance, like all these people, right? So, I mean, the life insurance guy was like, you're going to die in a fire. Your kids are going to die in a fire. I mean, case closed as far as I'm concerned. And if the children were kidnapped, where were they taken? And there are so many theories about that. So we'll get into that in a second.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The one that was asleep on the couch, she didn't say what the other kids were doing when she went to sleep, or?
I don't think so.
I didn't know if she was like, well, they said they were going to bed, or they were doing, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know if she had said,
they were
like,
all young, I guess.
Yeah.
So the Sodder case has inspired countless theories over the decades. So when you start connecting the dots, it feels like a puzzle, and the pieces don't fit, right? Because nothing really, you don't know anything for sure. And what happened so long ago, it feels like this story that you told last week, right? Just like, it
Yeah, it doesn't make any... Like, why didn't they take the one that was on the couch? Why didn't they take the ones that were... Like, why did they take those 5?
Those 5 who would have been upstairs. Because their
but
bedroom...
the other 2 have been upstairs also in their own room or whatever?
They had... the parents were in their own room.
Right,
with
but there
the
was
2-year-old.
2 other boys... So there was 2 other boys upstairs though, right?
They could have been downstairs.
Okay, I just thought...
Their bedroom, yeah. So... Okay, so let's start with one of the most prominent theories. The idea that the children were kidnapped by someone within the Italian immigrant community, possibly as retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini. That's the most common theory about all of this. So George didn't hold back when it came to his views on politics. And so in this small town, a small community of Italian immigrants, where loyalties to the motherland, right, and in some cases to Mussolini ran pretty deep. His opinions didn't always sit well. So it's hard to ignore the timing. In the months leading up to the fire, George had been threatened, including the ominous warning from the life insurance salesman about his house going up in smoke. So could this have been a vendetta? If so, why target the children? Was it to punish George, or was it something even more complex, like human trafficking, or this, which is bizarre? And that leads us to another possibility, that the children were abducted and sold into adoption or labor trafficking, which they think that's the most common theory, is that they were all adopted out. So remember the reports of the children being seen alive after the fire had started, right? So one witness claimed to see them with a group of adults at a rest stop in the morning after the fire, while another said they saw the kids peering out of the car window looking scared as the vehicle sped away. So if these sightings were accurate, it suggests the fire might have been a cover for them being taken. Then there's the photograph Jennie received in the mail in 1968 that she believed was her son, Louis. They do look alike. There are similarities. If you put the two, his younger version of himself, yes, they do have some similarities in the eyes. And just, you could just see that they look like they're related at least. But it's hard to tell. It's a little picture, Another theory takes us back to the fire itself. Some speculate that the blaze was started intentionally to cover up the kidnapping. The timing and the circumstances are just a little too strange. That loud thump that Jennie heard on the roof before the fire, some believe it might have been an incendiary device like a Molotov cocktail. And they said it was something like, I don't know, this napalm something, I don't know. So they thought because the fire started in the second story. So that's what they think started the fire. What's even more puzzling is the behavior of the Fayetteville Fire Department. By the time they arrived at the scene, it was too late to do anything. But why did it take them 7 hours to respond? Granted, it was Christmas Eve and the fire department was small and was volunteer-based, but if they were somebody else, if it was like a white family or, would it have been different or, it just seems strange.
Weren't they white, or do you mean not Italian?
So in this time, Italians were the Mexicans of...
Okay, I'm just asking what you took.
Yeah, so like Italians and Irish immigrants used to be about as equal to Mexicans at this point, right? Like we're coming from South America. Like they weren't seen as white then.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They are now, but it's not back then. And let's talk about the evidence or lack thereof. The local coroner quickly ruled that the fire was accidental, caused by faulty wiring, and the case was closed. Boom, bam, boom. But George and Jennie knew that was not the way. No, they did not believe that. Because they just had the electrician out. There was no faulty wiring. An employee of the telephone company later confirmed that someone had climbed a nearby telephone pole and cut the line to the Sodder home that night.
Oh my God.
Why? Why did that happen? The Sodders also uncovered... Oh, what?
But she had that phone call at 1 a.m. or whatever, right? So it would have been like right before the fire started that someone cut the phone line?
And she couldn't get anybody, so she went to the neighbors.
They have even got on the phone line, like telephone pole?
I mean, yeah.
Did they use the ladder that was in the ditch?
There you go. That's probably how it happened. The Sodders also uncovered that a local man had been overheard bragging about starting a fire. But when George confronted him, the man denied it, and law enforcement refused to investigate. So, of course, not everybody believes the kidnapping theory. Skeptics point to the chaos of the fire and the possibility that the children did die, but their remains were either completely consumed, despite evidence suggesting this is highly unlikely, or somehow someone overlooked their bodies in the initial investigation. I don't think so. But George and Jennie were certain that the children had been taken, and they spent their entire lives chasing leads. George, like I said, George traveled across the country to investigate potential sightings of his kids. Florida was a big place for leads. They got a lot of leads in Florida and in New York. And so he would go to New York, he would go to Florida, and every tip turned out to be another dead end. Even after George passed away in 1969 and Jennie in 1989, the surviving Sodder children carried on the search. They never gave up. Their youngest daughter, Sylvia, who had been just 2 years old at the time of the fire, grew up haunted by what happened that night. She believed her siblings were out there and continued looking for answers into her old age. She was still giving interviews in 2021. The case of the Sodder children is one of those mysteries that really you can come up with a different theory. You can decide you want to go one direction and go, well, but then this happened. I really think it might be this, but like, I honestly don't believe that they died.
I don't believe they died. There's no way that all 5 of them would have no evidence. I can see maybe one, but to say all 5, there was no evidence of them dying. No evidence. That's crazy.
Also, no one heard them screaming.
Yeah.
There were no screams for help.
Yeah.
Those children were old enough to break glass.
Yeah.
And jump.
Yeah.
Right? Those children were old enough to scream for help. They weren't babies. And George never heard his kids. So the fire wasn't the beginning of the story. That was just the climax, right? So leading up to the night, Sodders had several unsettling run-ins, right? So they had the life insurance salesman who showed up. Your house will go up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. Then there was the mysterious handyman. Hey, you're going to have a fire here pretty soon, right? The other thing is, he said that those wires were going to cause a fire and the fuses would go out or whatever, but the lights were still on in the house even though the fire was burning. So if it were the fuse box, there would be no lights.
Right.
But the lights were still on, the fire was burning, and that guy can kiss my ass. So he was wrong.
Yeah.
The fire did not start there. It started up on the second floor.
Yeah.
Not at the fuse box. Then there was the bragger in town who said, hey, I started a fire, but denied it when George confronted him. Then there was the car watching the kids. In the weeks before Christmas, remember, the son said, hey, there's this guy sitting out or a car sitting out there watching the younger kids come home from school. Was it surveillance? Were they just casing the joint? Were they picking which kids they wanted? Ugh. That's terrifying, right? So the evidence. So those are the potential suspects, or maybe the who's done it, right? So here's the evidence, or lack thereof it. There were no remains found. The biggest red flag for George and Jennie was that no bones or remains of the children were recovered. Even in intense fires, there's going to be something. Bones do not 100% disintegrate. The family sifted through the ashes themselves and found nothing, not a trace. Experts later confirmed that even cremation, which burns at a much higher temperature than a house fire, leaves bone fragments behind. They even dug up where the house stood, and they carefully dug everything up and searched for bones, thinking maybe they dug all the way down to where the basement would be, and there was nothing. They found bits of vertebrae, but just that's it. They found like a little bits of a vertebrae, but it wasn't of one of their children. Because it was like an older person, because of the way.
That's fucking creepy.
They think maybe it was planted. Even one guy even fucking put a cow's liver or some shit and was like, "Oh look, it's a heart. It must have been one of the kids's," And they're like, "Dude, that's a fucking liver." God. Have you ever seen a heart? Do you know what that is? Like. Just trying to.
There's no way a liver would survive the fire, not bone.
I'm saying, and it was like, I think they were trying to be like, look, we found. Listen, Sodder family, let this go. Let this go.
It seems like the whole town was in on this.
Like, let this go. Just, it's a tragic accident, and we're so sorry, but let it go. And the parents were like, no. All right, so no remains found. Then there was the missing ladder. George always kept it propped up against the house. All of a sudden, it's like 100 feet away. Wasn't intentionally moved, so George couldn't rescue the kids. Probably. Then there was the disabled trucks. George's trucks that worked perfectly fine that day suddenly don't start when he needs to drive it to climb up and save his kids. Then there was the cut phone line. Initially, the family thought the fire had knocked out their phone service, but an investigation revealed the line had been cut. Someone had climbed the utility pole near their house, severed their wires. Why? Then there was a fire's origin. Authorities claimed the fire was caused by faulty wiring, but the house was recently rewired and the electrician had given the all clear. Plus, the family's Christmas lights stayed on for part of the fire, which would have been impossible if the wiring had been the source of the fire. Boom. Even after the ashes cooled, strange sightings and evidence trickled in. Several claimed to have seen the Sodder children after the fire. There was the rest stop. There were a group of adults who were all speaking. There was a woman who said she tried to speak to the children at the rest stop, that they had come into a store, and she tried to speak to them, but the adults blocked her from doing that. The adults just cut her out. They were like, "Nope, don't talk to these children." There was the photograph decades later that Jennie got of Lewis, possibly Lewis. The billboard that Jennie and George had put up on Route 16 stayed there for decades. And their youngest daughter, Sylvia, who was just 2 at the time of the fire, she carried on the torch of looking for her family after her parents passed. Even the grandchildren of the other siblings, they keep the family, they keep the mystery alive, it happened on Christmas Eve. I'm sure it's something that comes up for Fayetteville. I'm sure, that's a story that they talk about. Sylvia remained vocal about the case well into her old age, sharing the story with anyone who would listen in hopes that someone somewhere might have answers. And Sylvia Sodder Paxton, who was born on March 5th, 1942, died on April 21st, 2021. So here's hoping she's reunited with her entire family and that she's at peace. But
are any of the children still, like, that we know, are any of the children that were at the home that night that got out of the fire still alive?
No,
or no, she was the
youngest. Sylvia was the youngest, and she's the last one. So now her children and the other grandchildren keep it alive. But that Jennie actually put the picture of the newer picture of Lewis, who she thought was Lewis, on the billboard. But after she died, that billboard came down. It was redone in 1976 And then it came down in 1989. So, you know, the Sodder children disappearance is a case that will stick with you because of how open-ended it is.
Yeah.
And why were they taken? I was kind of waiting for somebody to say like, well, someone found them because of 23andMe or Ancestry.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, gosh, there's got to be somebody related. There's got to be somebody who's like, I don't think I belong to this family. And,
I remember reading one theory that said it was like one of the accounts for a witness said they saw the children running away from the home.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was like, why would they run away? Like, none of the theories make any sense. I mean, other than like they were kidnapped.
Right. And, they were upstairs. And so it by the time George was like, okay, everybody get out, he wouldn't have been able to get back upstairs.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was just tragic. But I agree with them.
There's no way they died.
There's just no way. And I feel like it's hard to say with absolute certainty. That's why nobody's saying like, oh, it's impossible. That no one's saying that it's impossible. But I feel like it's kind of pretty impossible. Like it's never happened
for
all five. And Jenny even said, and there was no smell of burning flesh. Oh. Yeah. That was another one of her big reasons. That there were no screams and there was no smell of burning flesh. Yeah. And for damn sure that would have smelled like hell.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I would think at least one of the five you would have seen them trying to get out or something. Like you said, they were all old enough to get out.
They were old enough. Someone was old enough in that room or one of their rooms to be screaming at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
To make a jump, even if they didn't make it, to try to self-preservation. But I mean, I've burned an arm hair and it smelled so bad. Can't imagine.
Like, I have so many questions, but also like, who was the one that was on the couch? Betty?
I don't know.
The one that was on the couch, like, why did she not get kidnapped? Like you said, were they all just outside? But why were they outside doing chores at like 2 a.m? You know what I mean? Like, I assumed when you said chores, it was like indoor things, like you said, closing the blinds, locking the door. So it's just blows my mind, like how
feed the horses and shit like that.
Oh, okay.
Like go do like real on the farm.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was like a whole farm thing. So
they had.
Yeah. But still, like, oh.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. But there's just a lot. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's incredibly sad. When I was doing research, I was just like, man, the feeling of the feeling I kept getting was I feel like a conspiracy theorist because it seems illogical that there would be this like mafia. Like there's a theory that it was the mafia, but like why would the mafia go after the kids upstairs?
The mafia was a theory in my story too. Like, right, they're just very busy.
They're very busy. Just doesn't make sense though, right? Like they're kind of like, let me just, you're done. There's not this whole like, let's kidnap children
and set the house on fire.
Climb up a ladder and cut the phone line, throw the ladder away, disable the trucks, have all this stuff happen.
It was a very elaborate plan. And for the whole city to be, or the whole town to be like, just let it go. Like, that's so weird. The whole town was just like.
The fire department and the police department just sort of being like,
yeah.
Not our monkey, not our circus, not our monkeys or whatever. Like, this is not my problem. And who knows why they are like that? Who knows? Yeah. Maybe just it wasn't important to them. So they were just like, well, this is just a tragic accident and we're so sorry. And that's it. That's the end of the story. But I think George and Jennie were absolutely right. And there were people who kept saying like, oh no, we saw them. We're their neighbor. I know what their kids look like. I saw them in a car. You know, like, how do you not investigate that?
Yeah.
There was like...
At what point did they see them in the car? Like after the fire?
As the fire was burning.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
But then nobody shows up. No authorities show up for 7 hours. So long gone by now.
Yeah.
Long gone.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I know. So that's my story. I know. Lots of questions. No answers. Lots of questions. So if you know anything, reach out to the Fayetteville, West Virginia, somebody.
Yeah.
Reach out to the Sodder family. They're still around. But that's it.
Well, that's such a feel-good story.
I know.
So glad we're ending on that for 2 weeks. Or whatever we're doing. I don't even know what we're doing. 1 week, 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, I don't know. No, 2 weeks because it's Christmas.
And then New Year's.
So y'all be safe if you celebrate. Well, we have Hanukkah also is Hanukkah, Kwanzaa even, Festivus for the rest of us. We're all, we all have something to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's a festive season. So everybody have a great time with your family, with your loved ones.
Hopefully my story that kicks off 2025 will not be about missing children, but who knows?
Who knows?
We'll see.
I know, children, but nobody died. Well, I mean, they did die, but eventually. But nobody was brutally murdered in my story, right? That's not usually my thing. I know.
You just really lived down to that comment about how we talk. The most gruesome.
I know.
Worst of the worst.
Sorry, David, that I've ruined our comment already. So anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,
See something.
Merry Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus for the rest of us, and see something, say something. See you next time. Have a great New Year's. Happy 2025. Oh. Bye.